My name is Brittany, the Quiet Storm Cloudy. I am a professional MMA fighter fighting as a flyweight and future bantamweight. I have been in the sport for about 5 years now. A little bit, so I'm going to start by talking a little bit about how I entered into the sport and things that I did prior coming in. Before getting into MMA, I would say that I've always been an athlete since the age of 9. I played basketball. Originally, I played for a community school, and I remember one of my friends who lived in my neighborhood. She ended up being a really close friend. They saw me outside dribbling the basketball. I was in 5th grade at that time, and I was really tall. And they literally stopped and asked me if I wanted to play basketball with them. And at the time, they were in 8th grade, and I was in 5th grade. But I was so tall, I ended up being their center and playing the center position. And that was the start of basketball for me. For most of my life, I've always been exceptionally tall. Well, taller than most, and very athletic. So basketball was my first love. I had dreams and aspirations of wanting to be in the WNBA, so you could always see me with a basketball in my hand or trying to play basketball. I played basketball, AAU, all the way up until high school. I went to Marquette High School in Chesterfield, Missouri. Originally, I am from St. Louis, Missouri, and I grew up there. I went to college there, and just the last 8 months, I moved out here to California to pursue my fighting dream. But before I even got into MMA, basketball was my first love. In high school, I played basketball all 4 years. In addition to basketball, in the spring season, I ran track. I was tall, I had long legs, so it made sense. I enjoyed doing sprints, but my bread and butter was the long and triple jump. I did the long jump and the triple jump all the way through high school. I ran some short sprints. I did the 4x4 relay, the 4x1 relay, the 4x2 in high school, all of those sprints. In college, I did most of those same events, but mostly I focused on long jump and triple jump. I went to St. Louis University in St. Louis, so I stayed local, and I ran track there for all 4 years. The program was pretty new at that time, so when I got there, I ended up being the first conference champion for the A10 championships in the triple jump. For those 4 years, I ended up racking up about 8 of those championships, so I was all conference every year, which led me to being inducted into the St. Louis University Hall of Fame the following year. And I was the first track athlete to be inducted into the Hall of Fame there, so that was a big accomplishment. And after that, I really had aspirations to continue forth, because I felt like I had a good shot at making it to the Olympic trials. So I continued to train for the long and triple jump post-college, and I did that for about a couple years, and I ended up jumping close to my PR, and it ended with an injury. And my coach at the time, who was training me, ended up getting an awesome job at Mizzou, and I kind of felt like that was a good closure to that chapter for track and field. At the time, my significant other was an MMA fighter, and so while I was training for track, I was also going to MMA fights and learning about the sport, and I kind of thought it was like, ooh, this is pretty intense just watching. But after I was finished with track, I couldn't help but to kind of be intrigued by the sport. So I said, let me just try it out. So I ended up getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at St. Charles MMA. They're really known for having really good jiu-jitsu, so I feel really solid that I started my career at St. Charles MMA. Once I started doing jiu-jitsu, I literally felt like there was this thick book of the sport, and I literally maybe wrote 2 words on the pages, and I felt like there was so much to learn, so much I didn't know, and man, that captivated me because it was like, oh man, how do I do this and how do I do that? And and it just became like something that my mind just fell in love with and absorbed, and I just had to keep going. So jiu-jitsu started it, but then of course I always wanted to learn how to box. And so boxing was the next thing I started to learn, and I realized that all of that, all of the sports that I've done over the years, basketball and track, I've had really strong legs, and just I feel like that strength really helped when it came to having power in my punches, and overall just the mindset of physically putting my body through something. So boxing became another one of those things where I'm like, man, I really suck at this right now, but I really want to get better. And I just fell in love, and it became my new love. And being an athlete for so long, I felt like this was the sport that combined everything. All of the other sports that I've done, all of the mental training and strength training and everything that I have gathered from being an athlete was tested in this sport, because this sport really had me thinking more about myself. I really had to face myself, because you're put in a lot of uncomfortable positions and situations in fighting. I mean, obviously you're getting punched in the face, but showing up every day, day after day after that, or being submitted multiple times doing the same things, you can't help but to want to reflect on what you did and want to come back and to be better. And I really felt like it really helped me to face myself in all those different aspects of my physical form, my mentality, my emotions, my intellect, because there's a lot of strategy present in the sport. So I loved how fighting has connected me to all of these different parts of myself. Meanwhile, 5 years ago, when I started this sport, and while I was running track before that, when I graduated from St. Louis University, I graduated with my bachelors in elementary education. I also have the passion. I think my heart is definitely into helping others. So I remember in high school taking a cadet teaching class, and I taught algebra. I really liked math at the time. I was really good at it. And I remember one of the students telling me that, man, you really explained that very well. Like, I really get it. And that one moment right there made me feel like, maybe I'm good at teaching, and that made me feel good to know that, like, I connected with this person and I gave them some insight, some clarity. And from then, that moment, I knew that I wanted to get into teaching. And eventually I found my place with the young kids. I figured, how can I make an impact in the world? Just me, one little person. And I found that by being a classroom teacher in the elementary setting. When you're at your youngest, and kids, oh man, fall in love with kids. They're just the joy, the stress-free life that they live is just an amazing thing to feel and be a part of, because they embody just joy. And I love to be a part of that. And at the same time, teaching them the things that they need to know academically, but, wanting to plant a little seed of, here's how the real world is, and here's how you can be successful, and here's how we can be good people. Here's how we can be good people to ourselves. Here's how we can be good people to others, because really the way that we make the world better is by being good and spreading positive vibes to the people that we meet along our lives. Taught third grade for 3 years in the inner city of St. Louis, Missouri, and then I relocated, and I was a teacher assistant in Kirkwood School District, where the following 2 years I ended up teaching first grade. Man, teaching first grade was one of the grades that I said that I would never want to teach, but I ended up really, really loving it, and I ended up learning so much because I was like, man, I don't remember how I learned how to read. All of the basic things about the phonemic things before we read, and those are the most basic things that you learn in first grade. And I was like, oh man. But through that experience, I learned a lot, and I really, really, really learned a lot of patience. And because at that age, you definitely need patience with kids who are 6 and 7-year-olds. So every year, every different environment that I was in, I definitely learned something about myself and how I could improve myself to help be a better educator. So during the day, I'm teaching. Post afternoon, I'm hitting the track for training, and then after track, or it was MMA. So teacher by day, athlete by night. I was traveling to track meets. Then I was traveling for fights and doing all that on the side. My schedule was pretty packed. Eventually, I decided that, I wanted to plan ahead too. I love teaching, but I also had another desire to want to help in a different way. And I've always enjoyed the field of psychology and understanding human behavior. So I decided to get my master's in counseling. So in April of 2019, I finally completed my master's in counseling. And at that point, I realized that, man, I'm at a transitional period here. I just finished school. I've been teaching, and I'm getting in the flow of things, but I'm also getting older. And so then I thought about how I've been in St. Louis all of my life, and there was still something really big that I really wanted to do and accomplish, and I really wanted to expand my horizons and see life somewhere else, and I always felt like I kind of wish that I would have went to college outside of St. Louis to have that experience of leaving home. And so I kind of made up my mind that this was a good time to break away and go and be a little risky and kind of just chase something that I believed in, and which was really just taking the time to believe in myself. And at the time, I just had my pro fight, and I had my first pro fight in Invicta, and everything was great. It was such a great experience, and I came and I fought, and it literally came down to the last 15 seconds. I ended up losing of a split decision, but it was a really great experience. So I took the next almost year of just getting my life together to prepare to make this move here to California. And so in June of 2019, I packed what I could in my car, shipped it here to California, had my plane ticket in hand, ready to go, and I moved here. California is the place where I envision beaches and sun shining and nice weather, and just that alone sounds amazing. So very, very fearful, big, risky thing. But man, if you're not taking risk in life sometimes, then what are you doing? If you're just staying stagnant and you're not exactly happy, or is there something that you really want to do, but you're afraid that it may not work out, or if you're afraid that you may fail, then you're limiting yourself. One of those things is like, I learned that I can't be afraid to fail. If anything, I've just become really good at planning. I like to, because I have landed and not have landed on my feet, I still get back up and I still find a way to keep pressing forward. Everyone has a life story. Everyone has had their triumphs and their difficulties and their obstacles. And You really gain real strength when you're forced to have to get back up after falling. That's where you really gain the strength. If you look at it from I'm about to deadlift something, you have to bend down to pick up that weight. You have to get there and you have to move it. And you're going to have to stand back up in order to be successful. Just bending down and touching that bar is one part of it. But the real grit is biting down, tightening those glutes, and extending up and pushing those hips up. So life's pretty much that, is what I've learned, is that you're really going to have to bite down. But think about how many times you're going to have to get back up. Because if life was easy, then we'll just be floating through. But it's not always like that. And it's such an amazing feeling when you accomplish a goal, when you accomplish something that was really hard, when you accomplish something that you may have not been successful at the first couple of times, but the fact that you didn't quit is empowering, because you would never have known that you actually could accomplish it if you would have, kept pressing. So here I am now, actually living the dream in which I visualized for myself a whole year ago. Living and just training full time and devoting my energy into one thing, because for so many years I've been doing a lot of different things at the same time. And finally, I get to just pursue this one thing. And no matter where this road and journey takes me, what I am gaining along the way is magical. It's defining who I am as a person. I'm pouring into myself every day just by committing to something that I believe in myself. So the destination, of course, I have visions of where I want to see myself, but I do know that who I am evolving into day after day, I really like it. I really like who I'm becoming. And I can't say, and I don't know if I would be here right now had I not have made every decision that I made. So the important thing, I guess what I would say to end all of this off is, believing in yourself. And sometimes people around you or other people may have opinions about your life and what you're doing, but at the end of the day, it's your life. You could be smart about your life. You believe in yourself first, because you are who you have to the day you die. Make that relationship super tight. If no one believes in you, you better believe in you, right? So I hope that I'll get to continue to share my story and show people just the joy of the journey as I go on to, just follow my path and wherever it takes me.